Welcome back to Rising. Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
We're talking about one of your favorite topics, AI. So artificial intelligence is sold to us as inevitable, faster, smarter, cheaper, progress, no questions asked. But here's the thing, when something is moving this fast, unchecked, and quietly reshaping daily life, asking questions isn't anti-innovation. It's just basic responsibility. That's why Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is tapping into something real when he warns about AI's unchecked expansion. Now, whether you agree with him politically or not, his concern cuts across party lines. AI, left on autopilot, can hurt workers, distort reality, and drain real-world communities while hiding behind the illusion of the cloud. DeSantis has already repeatedly raised alarms about how AI could displace countless workers, flood our information ecosystem with what he calls, quote, mindless slop, and open the door to deepfakes and manipulation that pose a, quote, a potential existential crisis for self-government. That language may sound dramatic, but the consequences aren't theoretical anymore. At an AI roundtable earlier this month, DeSantis laid out what he's actually pushing for, and it's not a ban on technology, it's just guardrails. Take a look.
We believe that there should be transparency to consumers and that there should be a notice that they are interacting with artificial intelligence. We can't allow the situation to have this present itself as a human being either on the phone or in written correspondence. We also want to prohibit any entities from using these AI chatbots as, quote, licensed therapy or mental health counseling. Or imitating a licensed professional. The reality is these are machines.
The last line matters. These are machines, not people, not therapists, not trusted professionals. And yet AI is already being deployed in consumer-facing ways designed to mimic human connection and in some cases exploit vulnerability. DeSantis didn't mince words about that either.
The more it veers into the consumer-facing, just trying to monetize, trying to addict people, trying to do all that, that is obviously going to create a lot of harm.
And then there's a bigger philosophical pushback, rejecting the idea that AI is meant to replace us altogether.
The idea of this transhumanist strain that somehow, this is going to supplant humans and all this other stuff, we have to reject that with every fiber of our being.
This places the governor in a direct standoff with President Trump and big tech, since the president has embraced the technology and insisted it be managed at the federal level. But what DeSantis is proposing is straightforward. It's transparency when consumers interact with AI, bans on AI posing as licensed mental health professionals, stronger parental controls, and limits on the unchecked growth of data centers by ending state subsidies and protecting local water resources. That last part hits home for a lot of Americans. We think of the cloud as invisible, but it's not. According to the BBC, the cloud lives in more than 10,000 data centers worldwide. Most of them are in the U.S., and that footprint is growing fast. The BBC reports that $64 billion in U.S. data projects are now currently being delayed or blocked due to local opposition, according to Data Center Watch. One major concern is water. A World Economic Forum study found AI-driven data centers could consume 1.7 trillion gallons of water globally by 2027. There are public health risks too. Many data centers rely on fossil fuel-powered plants, increasing pollution in rural and already vulnerable communities. AI growth shouldn't come at the expense of workers, clean water, public health, or democratic trust. Innovation without accountability isn't progress. So on this, DeSantis has a point.
Interesting. I actually expected to object to what DeSantis said more strongly than I do. On that last point, it's being debated and discussed how much resources these things are consuming. It's trade-offs like anything else. They're consuming resources, but they're providing some good, tremendous good is what I would say. And so I don't want to miss the forest for the trees. Certainly, local communities should have input in what gets built there, and I wouldn't confiscate anyone's property, certainly, but the tech companies should pay for it, but it's important to have them. Now, on the specific points that Ron DeSantis is raising, so I agree that there could be room, in my view, for even new legislation to prevent fraud and to make sure that AI, when deployed to the consumer, it is obvious that it is AI. No one should be represented falsely as have their identity taken, or you get scammed in some way. You think you're talking to someone, you're not talking to that person, and we might need stronger rules around that. I am on board with that.
Okay.
That's fine. Now, but when he went into kind of the licensing thing, I mean, okay, but how do you know, man, that the AI can't do a better therapy is a science of sorts. How do we know the AI doesn't do a better job of that?
But
an AI can drive your car better than you can. It can't get a driver's
I mean,
license.
okay, I don't want to get in trouble for some of these. I lived in Arizona for a little while, reporting to the local news, and sometimes it didn't always go that well with some of these self-driving
once
cars.
it ran over a cat. But
one time is enough for people to see somebody with no person behind the
But
wheel.
you see how that's foolish, because it's one cat versus the 50,000 people who die in man-driven car accidents every year. There are things that AI is going to be able to do already better than humans. And so I'm wary of saying we must wall it off from giving medical advice or legal advice or those. If you know, you have to know it's AI, sure, but it might guide you better with less room for error than human. We're already seeing evidence of that. So it just seems obvious to me that it.
And I want to kind of put some of those two things together, because another thing that he argues for, because he had several different events just in December alone about AI, and he's kind of making this the marker of his last year in office. But he talks about protecting children, and when you talk about AI being used as a therapist or in vulnerable moments, and you're saying maybe it's better than a therapist or a doctor in some cases that give the wrong information, well, then you have to remember that children are also using AI. And when you have people accessing information, and then you have reported cases of parents trying to find answers on why children or people have done things to themselves or had harmful acts done, is because AI was guiding them, like, this is a good next step, or maybe think about this, or they said their last words to AI. Well, this is not a real person. Maybe AI should call for help. Maybe AI should tell somebody that this person is thinking about ending their life.
Maybe it should be programmed to do that. But you can't. I need to be shown evidence first that this is worse, that the outcomes associated with AI are worse. Maybe they're worse now, but won't be soon. But it's just like it seems naive for anyone to assume. Take the mental health part of it out. That it's just giving. Let's say it's just giving you medical advice. Let's say it's just diagnosing you. Who's to say it's not going to do that better than a human doctor?
What do you mean? A doctor that gets
better.
to see you and then Google. How many times have you Googled your issue? Like, this is me during COVID. I'm coughing. I'm thinking something's wrong with me. And I thought I had COVID 15 times. Or then I thought I had something else. And I go to the doctor. She's like, girl, you have asthma.
Right.
Because she needed to check. I needed to go to a real licensed professional. And she told me I have asthma to get my asthma pump.
What if we run this study and the AI correctly diagnoses your asthma?
How? By breathing onto my computer, Robbie? No. What do you mean? The AI is not going to do that. The AI needs to see and be with a real person that can examine your symptoms.
Okay, it drives my car better than me.
I mean, okay, you seem like you don't want any regulations around AI because you want to win.
I don't want any regulations.
I know, but you want to win. Your ultimate point that we talk about often is that you want to not fall behind in this AI race with other countries.
No,
but at the expense of Americans can't be the way.
No, what I'm saying is that your policies is at the expense of Americans. I'm saying that Americans will be healthier, better, weller as this technology comes along and is able to improve their lives. If it's not improving our lives, if it's harmful, then fine. But it's just being blithely, naively asserted that it is going to be comparatively worse than a human doing it. That will be true in some cases, and that will not be true in the others. And in the future, it might not be true at all. And transhumanism, that like life extension, implanting us into computers, I do not want to forestall that possibility. I want to live forever, don't you? Don't you want to live in the cloud?
Not really.
Well, then you don't have to.
Have you seen the movie Black Mirror or the series Black Mirror?
I've seen a lot of it. That is a Luddite approach to technology, that entire show. It's preaching doomerism, and look, you want to go, live in a cave and tremble in fear of your electronics. Be my guest.
Recently, the president has he's like one step away. The president is one step away from threatening any states that want to interfere with federal legislation when it comes to AI, which I think is problematic because people ought to be involved in determining how their states and especially how their congresspeople will legislate AI. And I think there's going to be a larger conversation rather than do what it does, see how it works, and see if everybody's good at the end.
Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
We have to talk about this, Robbie. So there are plenty of political breakups in Washington, but this one matters because of who is talking and what she's willing to say out loud. So in a sweeping New York Times Magazine profile that you've probably seen, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is even more firmly breaking up with the man she once called her, quote, political godfather, and she's not tiptoeing around it. She says the rupture came from growing disillusionment from a president who, in her telling, refuses dissent, demands loyalty without returning it, and governs with fear instead of faith. According to the Times, their fallout deepened as Greene broke up with Trump and other Republicans on issues ranging from calling Gaza war a genocide to objecting to crypto policies favoring billionaires to opposing tariffs that hurt her district, criticizing foreign student visas, and warning about letting ACA subsidies expire. But the real turning point for MTG came earlier this year during remarks that Trump delivered at a memorial for slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk. In that speech, you'll remember Trump said this about Kirk.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry.
Now, by contrast, Kirk's widow, Erica Kirk, publicly forgave the suspected killer. That contrast sat with Greene, and she told the Times, quote, "It just shows where his heart is, and that's the difference, with her having a sincere Christian faith and proves that he does not have any faith." From there, the cracks widened. And then there was this whole Epstein problem. Greene told the Times that the Epstein case represents, quote, "everything wrong with Washington," calling it a story of rich, powerful elites doing horrible things and getting away with it. And the women are the victims. After meeting with several victims in closed-door House oversight hearing, she said their testimony was believable and personal. So when Greene threatened to name the alleged abusers at a press conference, she tells the Times Trump called her angrily, yelling so loudly that staff could hear him throughout her office suite. According to Greene, when she questioned his resistance, Trump replied, quote, "My friends will get hurt." That moment opened a bigger question. Why fight so hard to dismiss Epstein as a hoax? And who exactly was being protected? Greene also took a moment to look inward during the interview, acknowledging her role in the culture she now criticizes, telling the magazine, quote, "After Charlie died, I realized that I'm part of this toxic culture. I really started looking at my faith. I wanted to be more like Christ." She even took aim at what she called the MAGA Mar-a-Lago sexualization, saying, quote, "I have 2 daughters, and I've always been uncomfortable with how those women puff up their lips and enlarge their breasts. I've never spoken about it publicly, but I've been planning to." And she didn't stop there. She's also accusing Speaker Mike Johnson of answering directly to the White House, saying, "I want you to know that Johnson is not our speaker." She went on to explain he literally is 100% under direct orders from the White House, and many, many Republicans are so furious about that, but they're cowards. Now, the administration has fired back on all this, with White House spokesperson Davis Ingle saying in part, quote, "President Trump remains the undisputed leader of the greatest and fastest growing political movement in American history, the MAGA movement. On the other hand, Congresswoman Greene is quitting on her constituents in the middle of her term and abandoning the consequential fight we're in. We don't have time for her petty bitterness." Now, I know this is all a lot, but it's more than just a petty feud. MTG is exposing how loyalty, power, and silence are enforced. And whether you believe Marjorie Taylor Greene or not, one thing is undeniable. When someone this close starts talking this loudly, it definitely means the ground is shifting. So she had a lot in there. I think from the stuff that we already knew about the reasons why she didn't like Trump or didn't like his response. I mean, didn't like the way that he treated her. But when he responded in Charlie Kirk's funeral, I think a lot of people were looking at that memorial service and saying, wow, that's, a bit aggressive when his wife said she forgives the killer.
Yeah, but I mean, and I didn't care for that either. I didn't care for what he said about Rob Reiner. There's no end to Trump saying gross, ill-timed things. We've known that about him the entire time he's been, in political circles. So I have a hard time believing that that's actually, that she or anyone else suddenly realized that Trump is not kind of a upstanding moral beacon in terms of his rhetoric towards people he dislikes and rhetoric towards the media, right? That's been fairly consistently not the greatest thing about him. It's something his most diehard fans love and everyone else finds off-putting, even if they have to reluctantly come around to support him. They don't love it.
And we agree about that.
Yeah.
But the Epstein thing was another big bombshell to me, that he said, quote, "My friends will get hurt." His friends. She said that he called her on speakerphone, screaming so loudly that she was there and meeting with the victims, that her office aides heard him screaming because he was on speakerphone, and said, "My friends will get hurt," and they were arguing about it. And so that was another thing that set her off as a woman who's trying to grapple with her own Christian values. This is from the article, not me paraphrasing.
I mean, she's trying to grapple with the fact that he apparently told her, or someone in his orbit told her, "Don't run for governor, you won't win," and she doesn't like that, right? That's the other side of all this.
She said that he supported her political ambitions in the future and actually championed her in that article to run for governor. So now we're just taking whose side of the story is it? I mean, but the Epstein thing has to be a problem. If he called her and said, "My friends will get hurt," I mean, why are we protecting your friends instead of protecting, or first of all, alerting the American public to abuses and protecting victims that actually did get hurt versus your friends that did the hurting?
Why don't they just speak up then?
The victims did speak to Congress, and she said she was going to be the one to air this all out. What do you mean? This is all these things that we're getting from this interview, and you have nothing to say about it besides, oh, okay. And she's complaining about real things. She's complaining. What about the over-sexualization that she says happens at Mar-a-Lago? She has daughters that she wants to look up to the way that women should look in office, and she says that there's actually something that happens when you go down there and want to work for President Trump's team, that you need to look a certain way. She said people are getting their bodies done, their lips done. There's like a whole thing.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of what they call the Mar-a-Lago face look.
So you know what I'm talking about.
I don't know that it's overly sexual. I think it's just, there's too much lip from my perspective. But some people like that kind of thing.
Okay.
I don't know if it's overly sexualized.
That's what she said.
Not
she
like
says
walking around in
two
bikinis
daughters,
or something.
Huh?
Not like walking around in bikinis at the White House now.
I know, but it's like the fact that, if there's a Mar-a-Lago look, it's like, oh, to fit in this administration, you need to do something different to your body. So it's like, you can't just come as you are.
Do you? I don't know.
That's what she's saying. She felt that way. So you were not, your boat was not rocked in any way by this interview with the New York Times. That's really interesting.
I mean,
I think a lot of people were like, wow, you're saying that.
I think
the word
she's
friends in
taken
regards
it
to
personally that she's lost Trump's favor, and moreover that she's lost the support of the Trump base to some degree. That she's getting, she used to put things on social media and just get, like, and now she puts things on social media and people scream at her that she's a traitor to Trump. And I think that's psychologically destabilizing. If you've ever been the subject of a Twitter pile-on or something, it happens to me with some frequency. It doesn't make you feel good. You got to have a thick skin, and you just got to you win some, you lose some. They'll be back with me on something else in the future. And it seems like she's not quite handling that great. I don't say this with any malice toward her. I think she's a nice woman. I think she has a lot of constructive things to offer. I appreciate that she's grown as a person and wants to tone down the harshness of our political rhetoric. I think that's all good. I think a lot of what she stands for is good. I've started to break with her on some of the Epstein stuff or aspects of it, and I don't agree with her latest healthcare thing, but I do agree with her that the tariffs have gone too far and the immigration raids have gone too far, and I would rather have her in Congress, or at least serving out the rest of her term, joining Thomas Massie and a few others in making that case. But if she doesn't want to be there, she doesn't want to be there. So what can I say? I wish her the best. I really do.
I really wonder what's next for her. Some people say president. I don't see how that's an option that makes sense.
There's the Libertarian Party. She has to adjust a couple of her stances, but
she says she feels politically homeless right now. So
homeless people. I mean, politically
take it all.
People, feel free to come to the Libertarian Party. I've invited Elon. I invite MTG. I am inviting you. I'm extending the olive branch. Come check out the LP. You might like it. The water's fine, as they say.
Lindsey, what's in your lens?
Let's talk about it. So yesterday, New York City made history. And not in a quiet, symbolic way, but in a way that felt immediately like it tested what power is supposed to do. Zohran Mamdani was sworn in, becoming the youngest mayor New York has had in more than a century, and the first Muslim, first South Asian, and first African-born mayor to lead the largest city in the country. At 34 years old, with his hands on a Quran, Mamdani didn't just break barriers. He walked straight into one of the hardest jobs in American municipal politics with a very clear message. Expectations are not getting lowered. Standing outside of City Hall in the cold, Mamdani spoke directly to skeptics, supporters, and everyone in between, making it clear he understands the distrust people feel towards politics right now. And then he said this.
I stand alongside over 1 million New Yorkers who voted for this day nearly 2 months ago. And I stand just as resolutely alongside those who did not. I know there are some who view this administration with distrust or disdain, or who see politics as permanently broken. And while only action can change minds, I promise you this. If you are a New Yorker, I am your mayor.
That line matters because Mamdani knows symbolism won't carry him. Action has to. And he wasted no time. Moments after being sworn in, Mamdani signed 3 housing executive orders aimed at protecting tenants and accelerating housing construction across the city. He moved to revitalize the mayor's office to protect tenants and launched 2 new task forces focused on increasing supply, building on his campaign promise to freeze rents and tackle affordability head on. This isn't theoretical governance. It's immediate. For students and young New Yorkers who showed up for him in huge numbers, the expectations are concrete. Expanded tuition assistance for education degrees, potential transit discounts or limited no-fare pilot programs, increased funding for community colleges, and stronger advocacy for city universities. About 3/4 of the voters under 30 backed Mamdani. Now he has to keep them engaged. Of course, this mayoralty won't exist in a vacuum. He'll have to work with state leaders to accomplish these big ideas. He'll have to work with the federal government, too. And remember, during Mamdani's campaign, President Trump called Mamdani an extremist, quote, lunatic, threatened to withhold federal funding, and even suggested he'd arrest Mamdani if he interfered with immigration enforcement. And yet, Trump later invited him to the White House, and after that meeting said, quote, I want him to do a great job and will help him do a great job. I'm hopeful that temporary truce will last, but even if it doesn't, it underscores just how seriously Mamdani is already being taken. At its core, this win sends a message Democrats really can't ignore. Mamdani ran a bold, unapologetic campaign centered on affordability, housing, and using government power to help working people. And he won. Not by running from ideology, but by offering a clear vision of what life could look like if government actually showed up. Now, this isn't just a New York story, and if Democrats are paying attention, they'll stop calling wins like this an anomaly and start treating them more like a roadmap.
All right, so definitely interesting swearing-in ceremony. I did want to point out, did you hear Letitia James totally bungle his name when she was...
I think she probably was like a big moment. Everybody was looking at her.
That was tough. That was tough. Look, I think there's going to be a real test of socialist policies, collectivist policies under Mamdani, and whether or not his idea, his vision for housing policy will actually make things more affordable, or if government intervention leads to things being more expensive. Now, I appreciate that he did focus on the supply side of housing in those initial mayoral orders, executive orders, I suppose, which is important because the demand for housing has obviously increased significantly in major cities like New York, and you can't just freeze rent without increasing the supply and expect that that's going to make things better when you have this massive demand surge. So we'll see how it all works out. I think this will be a good test for the Democrats' progressive agenda.
I noticed another thing that he did was one of the executive orders was going to directly look into the people that, are like landlords that aren't doing a good job. And one of those people are Pinnacle Realty, which owns, I believe, has more than 5,000 violations across the city and 14,000 different tenant complaints. And they're in the middle of filing bankruptcy right now. And Mamdani in this executive order is like, not so fast. You need to make sure that these things are situated before you kind of get out of this, scot-free and say, oh, we're bankrupt, we can't do anything about it. There's a lot of people that are dealing with landlords like that Mamdani feels like they're getting the shorter end of the stick. Things like don't have the water hot when it needs to be, don't have cracks fixed. And he talked about and to those people in his speech and said, listen, somebody has to protect you and let the government start to do that. And so while a lot of people were frustrated with Mamdani for maybe overpromising and we haven't seen what he's able to deliver, I think the fact that he started with those executive orders and is trying to directly pursue what people voted for him for, it'll be a test, like you said, to watch what he's actually able to accomplish. I mean, Governor Hochul obviously is rerunning to be the governor again, so I don't know that she can just take on his full agenda and have the support of all of New York, because even though Manhattan and the city and surrounding boroughs are very blue leaning, a lot of the rest of the state of New York has mixed feelings about some of the policies that Mamdani had, which is why there was a back and forth about him being the underdog and rising to the place that he's at. But I do think that just for the fact that he's trying to move forward and implementing policy, that's what people are looking to. So when I talk about the Democrats as a wider party looking at him, it doesn't mean that, everybody in every city needs to follow this blueprint and be as progressive leaning as Mamdani. It means that Democrats forgot to speak to the average working American, and that's been repeated over and over again. Democrats have somehow become the party that talks to just college graduates and people with money, and somehow this took over the party that was the party of the working class. And no matter what majority of the country is of working or middle class. And so they need to get back and figure out what messages land. And obviously Mamdani's landed. And they're very actually similar to the messages of President Trump. Even if they have different strategies towards helping the same people, they spoke to the same issues. And so they have to remember that going into the midterms.
Yeah, I think my bigger concern for New York is actually more about how he's going to handle crime. He's appointed a few people to his cabinet that are big criminal justice reform advocates, and he has suggested sending in social workers to handle domestic violence calls. And then the free bus issue, I wouldn't be surprised if we see buses turn into roving insane asylums under Mamdani. But look, let's be real, right? Like, even if it's $1, fare to get on a bus it creates a barrier to entry for people who don't have good intentions. And just like anecdotally, when I was living in Pentagon City, I was accosted at a bus stop, and the only reason that guy wasn't able to follow me on the bus is because he didn't have a fare, and the bus driver was able to kick him off. And so I think as we see crime issues in New York over the past few years since the pandemic, that's an area where I think New Yorkers are going to learn very quickly that progressive approach isn't going to work.
Yeah, we're going to have to keep following. I know the MTA did a test run of this, and they said that there was a 32% reduction in assaults on specific bus operators when they tried this free run program. So I know that's not the people on the bus, that's the actual drivers, but we'll have to keep following it.